Hey everyone, and welcome to today's watercolor and mixed media painting tutorial. In today's video I will explain the process I used to make my recent painting, the Fairy Queen, and for this painting I depicted a doll which is adorned with a lot of beautiful flowers and butterflies all around her. She has a slightly surreal look because of her otherworldly face, which is very different from most other dolls. Before we start, I wanted to let you know that there is a 3 hour and 30 minutes long, almost real-time video of this painting available for my $10 Patreon supporters. It shows you the full process from start to the very end, and you see how I paint every tiny detail of this artwork from a close-up view. You can find a quick link to it in the description of the video. There's also a limited edition of beautifully embellished fine art prints available in my online shop. You can find a link to them and a list of all materials that I used and where to purchase them in the description of the video as well. For more painting tutorials, head over to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Lioba Brückner and select the $5 or $10 reward tier. You get access to over 50 painting videos covering oil, watercolor and mixed media techniques. For $10 per month, you get exclusive access to my live stream and real-time painting videos. For $15 or more, you get beautiful art surprises, fine art prints, original watercolor illustrations and much more. Don't miss out on improving your skills and learn new techniques. The doll that I portrayed in this picture was inspired by the beautiful dolls of Doll Chateau, and I will leave a link to their online shop in the description of this video as well. I hope that I will own this doll in the future so that I can take my own reference pictures, because it is such a beautiful doll and I love her so much. Though it is a bit out of my budget for now. Maybe I will get my wish in the future. They make amazing dolls, don't forget to check them out. And now let's start with the tutorial part of the video. I started this painting by filling in the face with a base color. I also used a lot of wet on wet technique on this piece, and to accomplish this I had to lay the painting on the table and add a lot of water and then add more paint into this water so that it would bleed out and create these beautiful watercolor effects. Then I put the painting back on the easel so I could get some interesting dripping effects again. Depending on what effects I wanted, I had to switch between putting the painting on the table and then on the easel, which made the process interesting and fun. In the composition I included 2 lilies, but they were really difficult to paint. I tried to start with watercolor and then I used white and yellow gouache to paint over it. But at this point I realized I wasn't patient enough to get the details right, so I ended up adding more gouache, which in the end I ended up wiping all off because it just didn't work out. After using a normal towel and water to get the gouache off the painting, it created this sort of washed out effect, and as a sudden and happy accident I got the effect that I really liked because it looked very vintage. Then I added more dripping effects over the top and I let it dry. Normally when you use gouache you can't add colored pencil over the top, but after I wiped off the extra gouache I was able to add colored pencils. Then I paid attention to the pollen stamps in the middle of the lily and added more details using yellow polychromos and white luminous pencil. I really liked how that turned out. Then I focused on her face and especially on those beautiful green eyes. As always, I really had to concentrate on getting those eyes symmetrical and not leaving one eye larger than the other one. So I carefully worked on both eyes at the same time. I also made sure to use very clear paint, so I paid attention to my water to be sure it was not getting too gray, so that I had clean colors to work with. After I worked on some details of the face, I continued with the butterfly wings. They were a little bit difficult to work on because I couldn't decide on what details to focus on first. So I painted one part of the butterfly wing, then jumped to the next parts of the painting. For the dress I used several different dress references and combined them in Photoshop to make a slightly different outfit. Then I jumped to different parts of the painting, working here and there using a combination of colored pencils and watercolor. For the wings of the butterfly, I especially wanted to make sure to use a brush and watercolor because I wanted to get those really beautiful clear lines, as when I would use colored pencils I can't really get those thin lines. There's always a grain when using color pencils. And then I continued working on her dress and clothing, and in this case I didn't just stay in one area, but I jumped around touching up on different places on the painting. Sometimes I just can't decide what to work on, and so I dance around the image, which can feel adventurous and freeing. I then decided to focus on her face again. And when I settle into this part of the painting, I have to be super focused to assure I'm getting those details right. I have to be especially careful when I work on the face that I don't start out super strong in the beginning, since at that point I didn't know how strong the other colors of the painting would become. To make sure that I worked to balance things out carefully, I moved between the face and the other parts of the painting and just slowly built up the values of the face. For the hair, I used a wet in wet technique, and for this part of the process I had to put the painting on the table again and wetted the area around the face, and then just used a drop of color in that area, and it just bled out to create beautiful colors around the face. For the clothes, I always try to build up the values very carefully, especially on the doll clothes that have a lot of details. If I'm not careful enough, I can mess this up very easily, so I just pay attention to all the details. After I build up all of the values, I use, for example, white color pencils to add some contour, so it looks like a convincing piece of clothing. In order to paint the eyes and to get the face very fine and detailed, it is important to be very careful. As always, when layering color pencils, I always layer a lot of different colored pencils on top of each other, rather than just choosing one color. For the skin tone on the face, I use a lot of colors, including oranges, browns, gray tones, yellows and greens, pretty much everything, and I carefully add one layer of pigment, then the next layer of pigment, until I get a very even coat of colored pencils. This is all detailed work, so it requires patience and it can be very tedious, but it's well worth it. For the eyes, I made sure to get them symmetrical, and to help me get the right symmetry, I have to step back from the painting and then I can see any mistakes. I also pay close attention to the reference to get the eyes very brilliant, and in this case I added some makeup around the eyes so they popped out even more. So that is it for this painting tutorial. As I said in the beginning, a 3-hour-long version of this painting tutorial, which is almost real time, is available to my $10 supporters on Patreon. If this version was too fast for you and you wanted to see or follow along to a very slowed down version to get a better sense of how I created the individual parts of this painting, head over to my Patreon page and you can watch the longer versions there. Also, if you want quick access to my other tutorials, just head over to my tutorial page on Patreon and click on the tutorial link, or in this case the real-time video link, and you will see them directly. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, share it if you think it is helpful, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye bye!